I'm Adrian J. Boer, DC, ND, mostly known as Doc. And I'm a board-certified naturopathic physician as well as chiropractic physician. For those of you that's here for the first time, welcome to a breath of fresh air regarding healthcare. This is what healthcare looks like in Europe. That is where I'm from originally, the Netherlands, and I've since, as you can tell, branched out to West Michigan, and we're going to apply a lot of the knowledge from the Europeans and Americans, combine it, and really hit it for you. We are going to cover a couple of esoteric topics first, just summer stuff. Dr. Stacy, who's not with us today, she's dealing with some horse issues at home. She has a bunch of horses, and she's also a chiropractor for horses. So she's adjusting horses. If you don't believe it, go to YouTube. And on YouTube, you'll see her adjusting horses. That's what she does for a living also. It's really cool. Anyhow, what she wanted to cover was bug spray. That was one of the things we get asked a lot, and I'll just dig into bug spray for a moment. Using her research, she found a very interesting article in New England Medical Journal. This is considered one of our cornerstone conservative medical journals that we have. It's very prestigious, which makes me suspicious. But it's often used as the hallmark of knowledge. And they were comparing DEET, which has been used since 1950s, to some other sprays. And it was really an interesting one. Just to deflate you, DEET was the winner. It did win them all, but there was some question on safety. There's a lot of unknowns about it. We don't know quite how it works. And we are always advised to use caution when using DEET. If you're going into a really heavily infested area, a lot of mosquitoes, I use DEET, but I spray it on my clothes. So I hang my clothes, my jacket, my pants, and whatever else on a hanger outside. I just spray it on there, and then I wear it. Yeah, it works well. It works for many hours. I'm going to get an exposure to my skin. And then on my skin, I will use something called picaridin, which is a bit of an unknown. I did a lot of digging into this one. It seems to be less toxic than DEET. It's only when I go into the extreme conditions and you don't feel like being eaten alive. But there's a new one that was studied by New England Medical Journal, and that is a unique combination of eucalyptus. Now, it's got to be a certain strength, and I'll dig out her research article here that she kindly copied for me. This eucalyptus product is sold at REI, and it has to be at least 40% eucalyptus. Okay, you can get it up to 70% eucalyptus, sometimes mixed with water. It is entirely safe. It was as effective as DEET, believe it or not, but DEET outperformed it. That DEET lasts longer. But this one has had an effectiveness rate of 120 minutes, which wasn't bad, I thought. You can always spray yourself again. So we'll get back to you as far as where else you can get it. I'm a little vague on that. I'm going to have Dr. Stacy post it on Facebook for us regarding articles, some more background information, and where you can get it. So there was also on horses, she kindly reminded me. On horses, what she'll do also is take garlic and mix it with water and spray them down, and she says that's effective for horse flies, mosquitoes, bugs for about 4 hours. So, but I can't see myself spraying myself with garlic water. So, but just so you know, for dogs and that, if they seem bothered, why not? It's a very healthy alternative, and you certainly don't want to spray these animals with DEET. They seem very sensitive to that. So, and I get this question a lot as well. Sunblock, what do you use? One of the more natural ones that you can use on kids is Jason. That's the one that we often recommend. I like sunblock, not sunscreen. All of Europe, the dermatology associations have gone away from the sunscreen because Their feeling is that it only filters some of the UV lights out. Others will enter in, will go deeper. Then the other rays can cause more damage underneath the superficial layer and cause premature aging of the skin because of it. And who needs that? And we suspect it is more cancer causing than not using anything at all. Sunblock, however, is different because it blocks sun, right? It just literally blocks it. So if you're going out for the first time and you're going to be outside on the beach for a long time, you know you're going to get fried. Well, first of all, use common sense, right? So expose yourself to some sun, cover up, but the areas that are still going to get burnt, like this, if you're wearing sunglasses, this, tops of shoulders perhaps, you can block the sun there specifically with zinc oxide. There's some new clear ones out now, and that's usually on there that says clear. Works wonderful. It just blocks sun rays, doesn't screen it out, it doesn't have the artificial ingredients. I'm a huge fan of that one, and that's the one I would use on my kids. Yeah? So these sunscreens can be dangerous. I know the dermatologists here go into this huge fit every time there's all this informational stuff out there. Europe has gone pretty much the whole opposite way. They say, expose yourself to sun. It is anti-cancerous, even for the skin. It's burning that hurts you. And we have the research to prove that. So it's really interesting how with melanoma, the Dutch will actually recommend sun exposure to help you fight it. And really, the doctors here would just almost have a heart infarct if they heard that one. But my experience has been, having been in practice here now for 21 years, that all the things that were taught over 20 years ago back in the Netherlands are finally starting to trickle through over here and becoming somewhat more mainstream. So it seems like there's about a 20-year lag as far as information goes, and maybe 100 for others. Okay.
Where would you buy sunblock like that?
Oh, you can get that everywhere. Yeah, you don't have to go to special health food store for this one. Whichever.
Repeat the name.
Zinc oxide, and it's the clear one, because you can get zinc oxide also that has that white look to it, and that's equally well, but it's just kind of weird looking. So the clear one's kind of nice. So, yes?
What about Mexerol? In Europe and Canada and Mexico.
Mexerol? I don't know that product. And why don't we, for the sake of time, why don't we gather up our questions and we'll hit it right away after? Yeah, does that sound reasonable? That way I can just keep cruising and you can help my ADD-like mind out that way. All right. So, interesting article also that I want to cover before we jump into the farmer's market, and that's this one. In today's USA Today editorial section, there was a big editorial on how we should clamp down on quality control on natural products. First of all, I agree. I totally agree. But as reasons, they quoted the last year that they had the statistics, and that was in 2007, that there were 9 deaths. I want you to know that 9 deaths, there's 2 points I want to make about that. One is that was the year that contaminated kava from Switzerland, of all places, made their way into this country. Kava is used as a relaxant, has a very strong history for safety and efficacy, has a lot of clinical studies backing it. Even the German Commission E label, which is the toughest label to get for clinical effectiveness rather, condoned it. But there appears to be different kava plants, and they used the wrong one in manufacture and sent it to us, and it resulted in 9 deaths, which of course is hugely unfortunate, and we should never be callous towards that. But those are the statistics that they quoted. Check out 06, check out 08, 05, and you'll find zero deaths. You'll have to go back to 04 to find a few other ones, and it was a similar problem like that. And again, it was in the single digits. If you study non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, NSAIDs for short, according to our own government statistics, the last one that we had from 2 years ago, it caused 18,700 deaths in this country. That's just one class of drugs. If we go up further and look at proper use of drugs, we're not talking overdose, we're not talking about wrong combination of drugs, we're talking about proper use of drugs, that number climbs to 96,000 100,000 deaths the last time we had a statistic on it. If you add to that doctor mistakes, because doctors obviously make mistakes and give you the wrong dosage, now we're at about 120,000. Add to that interaction that was with other drugs that was unforeseen. We're starting to approach, and now we're starting to guess. We have less solid numbers here. Close to 200,000 deaths a year in the United States alone. So we're talking a huge discrepancy, 9 versus almost 200,000. And I feel it's a little bit unfair that maybe we should focus a little bit on the 200,000 also versus the 9. These statistics were so startling when they first appeared in 2004 that a restudy was done of these statistics. It is now, medication use is considered the 3rd to 5th most leading cause of death in the United States. So it's pretty mind-boggling. And the Wall Street Journal really took off on this one and tried to figure out where is this going. And they found out that the interaction problem of medications is a lot bigger than we first thought. It's not just interaction drug to drug, but drug with food and also drug with environment. They quoted one really interesting one that stuck in my mind, that Tylenol can interfere very negatively with insecticide spray. In fact, there's many documented cases where if somebody was under the influence of Tylenol, if I can put it that way, and walked past an area that was being sprayed with insecticides, such as a golf course, that your liver can go into acute failure, resulting in death within 3 days. See, all this Russian roulette stuff. So it's something that we have to proceed with caution. Now, medications are also life savers. I want to emphasize that. I've seen many, many lives saved. It's just, I feel that the respect for medicine is sometimes lacking, and inappropriate use long-term is done where there are other alternatives. Food is another alternative, and we're really going to get into that in a moment. But I'll say one other thing is on quality control. My problem with the natural food industry, one, there's no good oversight on it. So every doctor is on their own, having to do their own research, making sure quality control is there. There's a lot of irrational claims being made. It bothers me to no end. And it really is the Wild West out there. When I started noticing over 20 years ago that my patients weren't responding to my suggestions that I was making, I started becoming suspicious, and at first I was kind of brushing it off. Well, I think it's just those Americans. They just don't have the lifestyle, and they're just not as healthy. But that didn't wash anymore after a while, and then I started putting some money together to do some independent analysis, and I used vitamin C and acidophilus, since those were the cheapest to analyze independently, and send them out to labs. And wouldn't you know it, that on average in the vitamin C bottle back then, only 10% of label claim was inside. So in other words, if the vitamin C bottle said 1,000, on average there'd be about 100 in there. What is it like today? Exactly the same. It's absolutely pathetic. Yeah. Acidophilus that I did, and this one was a little bit less than that ago, so it's more recent. Checked out 13 different brands of acidophilus, just a good bacteria that goes into your intestines. Only 2 of them had any live activity. It's just so sad. And of the 2, one had experienced genetic drift, which means it had changed form and was not nearly as effective anymore. So there's obviously, and I did pick on some of the worst offenders, by the way, but still it was really kind of makes you stop and think, and it's really a shame. So always look for the label that is certified by GMP, Good Manufacturing Practices. GMP is a tough label to get. Everything that you would get from here passes GMP. That's the American, that's the best stamp of approval that America has to offer. It's not follows GMP guideline. It does not comply to GMP standards. There's all kinds of play with words here because everybody's trying to claim it. No, it's GMP certified. That's the only way to go with it. And then I always look for independent analysis of the product so that another outside lab, or maybe 2 or 3, have tested the product to verify their claim. And then depending on a product like fish oil, I look for sheets and sheets of data on quality control. We're talking from freshness to what type of fish, to time of, from gathering the fish, to process, to encapsulating, what kind of stability test did they do, what kind of disintegration test did they do, is there pesticide residues, heavy metal residues, and last but not least, are there clinical studies that can back up the claims that the stuff actually works. So those are the things that we look for, and it is something that the FDA is supposed to do for their drugs also, but it's really been hitting the news the last couple of weeks. I don't know if you've seen it, on how many quality controls issues where there's bacterial contamination, even heavy metals found in almost 70% of the medications out there right now that they tested, and there's a big self-assessment going on, and what do we do with the quality control even within the pharmaceutical industry. So it gets kind of muddy, doesn't it? And a little bit disconcerting, but it's something that unfortunately I have to spend a lot of time just going over, touring the plants physically myself, talking to the researchers, and just getting to know where the product comes from. And I want you to do exactly the same as I do with the vitamins and minerals and herbs that I recommend for you. I want you to do that with the farmer's market also. And we're going to dig into that right now. So let's go to one natural product, corn syrup. Let's follow corn just a bit, shall we? This is a fun one. This one's been, I picked on this one simply because one, it's going to, of course, set this quite a bit apart from the farmer's market. But I've seen in a lot of ads lately, and we're talking full-page ads in the newspaper, how this is a natural sweetener. It's a natural product. Why? It's derived from corn. Corn has a really interesting history when you really go into it. Corn was first discovered, we think, by the Aztecs back about in the year 1100. That's about where we see the last history of corn. And we think that the corn plant, which is a naturally occurring species, it tends to mutate quite a bit on its own. And once in a while, instead of a whole bunch of kernels just out where it's supposed to be, they congregate together into what we know as corn. And that is a mutant. And it really is a mutant because when that drops to the ground, there's so many seeds together, they crowd each other out and they all die. So it really doesn't work real well for replication purposes. But we suspect that the Aztecs way back when noticed that, said, bunch of seeds, let's chomp on it, learn how to work with it, said, I kind of like this, started taking these corn kernels apart, spreading them on field, and started growing corn, and then replicating more and more until finally in the 1850s, we had something that closely resembles what we have. However, the yield per acre was about 30 to 40 bushels per acre back then. Had good use in everyday diets. It was used for chicken feed. It was used to ground up into shells. Mexico, 40% of their diet has some corn in it. So the Spanish also learned to put it into their dietary protocol, and it was quite a success because corn, one thing that really is good about corn is it grows in very dry, austere places, and is quite bug resistant. It's easy to grow. And it's because it's a 4C plant. Those of you into farming, 4C stands for 4 carbon, and whenever oxygen is being fixed, it's just, and nutrients are being fixed into nitrogen, it just is much more effective than a 3C plant. Most plants are 3C plants. This is a 4C plant. So we started fooling with it a little bit more and finally got it to the point that it's 50 bushels per acre. But it wasn't really until World War II that we really got into this, because we are innovative and we love America because of that. But after World War II, we had so much munitions going on. We didn't know what to do with it. Unexploded bombs. We had all the gunpowder, the black powder. What do we do with all this stuff? And then we had this brilliant researcher who actually dates back to World War I and already had put together some formulas. And somebody discovered that and said, you know, this might make good nitrogen fertilizer. Because we know that corn really depletes the soil from nitrogen, and that's not a good thing because nitrogen is a key component for growing. So they were able to make artificial or synthetic nitrogen now, And that changed farming in a huge way. No longer did we have to have all the rotation of crops and then cows on it on alternate years to fertilize, and all the shenanigans that we had to do with the pigs and the chickens and all that to make everything balance each out, which I'll cover in a bit. We were able to start growing corn like mad until today. We now have a yield of about 220 bushels per acre. It is a phenomenal yield. We can plant them extremely close together, but the trouble is our munitions ran out, and we had to figure out another way to make this nitrogen stuff. Fertilizer. Oil to the rescue. And we now have oil pumping out of the Gulf into our water. We have oil coming from the Middle East and who knows where supplying our fertilizer. 1/5 of our oil production is fertilizer to grow our food. So per bushel of corn, you are talking about 2 gallons of just raw oil. That's how much it takes. It is a pretty unsustainable system that we're in right now, by the way, if you want to get into a philosophical discussion, which is always kind of fun. Because 2 gallons of pure oil, calorie-wise, is worth way more, that's heat units, than this corn. So we are taking out of Earth a lot more energy than we are getting back out of it, aren't we? And it's also not a renewable resource. And therefore, we are using Earth's resources in a very non-renewable way to grow this immense amount of corn that we are going through. Corn has always had a history of being extremely volatile as far as prices goes. And it's a losing proposition for the smaller farmers especially now that we've gone away from the chickens and the dairy and the beef and all the other crops. Now we have, you go to Iowa, just corn and hogs. That's all you see. It's one or the other. So we've gone to a single income source for these farmers, and any of these fluctuations are just absolutely disastrous for them. So the government stepped in and started subsidizing. If it drops below $2.20 per barrel, which is what, or per bushel, then we'll step in and start subsidizing it. Right now, corn is selling at about $1.20, $1.30 per bushel. So that means we have to subsidize the farmers quite a bit for them to make a profit and be able to make a living. This subsidizing is wonderful for the farmer, of course. They can now grow corn any year, every year, and we have ended up with this huge, huge surplus of corn. What do we do with it all? Because we're not all going to be chewing on corn on the cobs. And what we have done, being capitalist and innovative, let's find all kinds of uses for corn. And corn is now considered more of a commodity than a food. And we have removed corn out of the food chain, and we've started making adhesives out of it. The shiny stuff in magazines, that's corn. The stuff that's gluing down this wooden floor right here, corn. In fact, the varnish that's on this wood right here, corn. And some of it's used in feedlots. That's a whole other story. I have experience working in feedlots, and I'll tell you some cute stories about that in a bit. But some of that is consumed over there as well. Your toothpaste, mostly corn. And in order to make this corn syrup, takes a bunch of enzymatic processes where corn just gets dumped into one of 4 big companies that we have. It goes through an incredible amount of heating, cooling, chlorination, enzymatic processing, pressing, until finally we get this stuff right here. This stuff is a main contributor to obesity in America because it's 5 times as fattening as real sugar. And believe me, I'm not a proponent of real sugar. But the insulin release that occurs when you sweeten with corn is 5-fold compared to regular sugar. That's why if you absolutely have to drink pop, make sure it's sweetened just with sugar. And even then, if you calculate the amount of sugar, it is scary how much is in one can of pop. You take all the liquid out, this much of it is sugar. Yeah, it is really scary. And so corn syrup equals a huge inflammatory response because insulin equals inflammation. And you're looking at one of the main causes of cardiovascular disease. You're looking at one of the main causes of obesity. You're looking at one of the main causes of our autoimmune inflammatory diseases. We have taken nature away. We've just made it into this commodity that no one has respect for. And there's no real capitalistic borders on it where price determines it because it's all subsidized. And we're just producing more and more and more, and we're trying to push it into our stomachs in all kinds of innovative ways at a severe cost of health, as well as a severe cost of environment. The stuff is cheap, but really it's extremely expensive when you really look at it that way. It's extremely expensive. So this is just one of the ingredients that I've tried to have you follow through its history a little bit, and it's the machination of mass production, and finally end up with corn syrup. 10% of our corn, by the way, goes to ethanol, which is our gasoline, and it's remarkable how innovative we have become. Yeah. But what most people don't realize when we're making ethanol, it took a lot of oil to make that ethanol, and that's really a shame. Okay. So instead, hop into your car Saturday morning, early, before the crowds get there, so you can zip in and out. Hit the farmer's market. Farmer's market is wonderful. You'll see a wide variety of different things. This one here is from Trillium Farm, one of my favorite places to shop from. I belong to the club of Trillium Farms. In other words, we have a pickup every Tuesday where you just gather up the harvest and take it home and eat whatever they provide. You can see this is some wonderful frisée lettuce. It's first of the year, extremely nutritious. It goes way beyond iceberg lettuce. You'll see beets there. You'll see onions. And, you know, just the onion itself, wow, what a product compared to corn syrup. Onion is, it's very much a Dutch product. And my sister and brother-in-law in the Netherlands have this big onion company. They import and export onions, and they're always telling me to make sure that I spread the word about onions because of all of its health benefits. The Dutch are really have an extremely high yield per acre because the ground is pretty much a premium there. We are crowding 17 million people in an area 1/5 the size of Michigan. And so farmland is very much at a premium, and their yield per acre is about fourfold what we do in this country, which is pretty astounding considering their poor weather conditions. But the allopropyl sulfoxides that's in there is very, very anti-cancerous. It's known to decrease colon cancer substantially if you only have 3 onions a week. We're talking by researchers that your colon cancer incidence goes down by 40% just by 3 onions. 3 onions is not much, folks. You just chop it up, throw it through whatever stir fry or vegetable you have, and you've got it. The white onion is not quite as nutritious as the yellow onion. Vidalia onion is not quite as nutritious. Darn, that's my favorite. But it's still incredibly nutritious. The fiber in there also is very much a weight loss product. If you want to lose weight, folks, start eating onions. It's phenomenal. And you know what's really exciting about onions also is it does so much for sugar regulation. This is incredible for those that have insulin resistance. It activates your insulin receptors. There's a powerful antioxidant in it called quercetin, and quercetin has been known to decrease inflammation very measurably. In fact, quercetin, when I first started here, is something that was one of my main weapons against ADD. And now I finally understand how it works. There's so much of the stuff that we know works, we didn't know why it worked, but we used it anyway because it's food. And quercetin we have always had very good success with ADD. And why would that be? How does that work? It's because quercetin is a potent antioxidant which decreases inflammation in the gut wall, which thus decreases your food sensitivities. All of a sudden the kid becomes less reactive to foods. And we know follow me here. This is kind of a fun journey. 90% of your neurotransmitters are found in the gut wall. And if you can have a positive effect on the gut wall, you're having a profound effect on the brain. In fact, in Europe, depression is considered a gut disorder. So by having onions, you're getting quercetin, which acts as an anti-inflammatory, which makes you less reactive to foods. ADD gone. Got that? Isn't that cool how that works? And that's just by onion, using food as medicine. Onion, when mixed with meat on hamburger, also takes away the pro-cancerous effects of meat, because those black lines from the barbecue, those are really nasty for you. They're called advanced glycosylated end products. Never mind that, I just want to sound smart. But advanced glycosylated end products are really pro-cancerous. They make you age. But even a little bit of onion on your hamburger takes that away. Isn't that great? Isn't that great? So you can eat your hamburger again. Not. So onion has cholesterol lowering ability too. It will lower cholesterol with 3 onions a week again, about an average of 40%. 40%! We're talking total cholesterol only, by the way. It helps promote the LDL just a little bit. And it also is a COX inhibitor, and a COX inhibitor stands for cyclooxygenase, and a COX inhibitor is how our Tylenol and aspirins work. Yeah? So again, it's a natural anti-inflammatory. All this from the lowly onion. On a personal level, I have 4 Den Boer uncles, and of those, only one is yet alive. And that fellow just turned 90 last week, had his little reunion with his 98 grandkids, and I don't know how many great-grandkids he has. Yes, very fertile. And he's 90, and he just stopped bicycling, and he's very bummed about it because his eyesight is deteriorating on him. Otherwise fit as a fiddle. Still farms, races pigeons, just like any true Dutchman in the southern part there. They're very fanatic about their racing the pigeons. And the one thing that I've observed watching him versus all the other Den Boer brothers who all died before 74, longevity doesn't run in my family, except for this guy, is that he, for breakfast, eats a whole onion every day. Raw. Eats it like an apple. And you know, I can go into the processing place of my sister and brother-in-law and watch all the workers. More often than not, I see them just chomping on the onion like that, like an apple. You get used to it. It's good. Yeah, and it's extremely healthy. So that's just one item in a farmer's market. As you can tell, we could be here till tomorrow morning if I went through all the other ones. And I'm going to cover just a couple others. But it's amazing what this food does. And I was just reading some research today on 2 new anti-cancer drugs, and they're so excited. And yes, any advance on cancer is exciting. But on advanced lung cancer, they found a new drug that will buy another 3 months of life. And it's making headlines everywhere, and I mean everywhere. And I'm thinking, if we only studied this stuff, published its benefits, what a super drug that would be called. An absolute super drug with just a plethora, just an immense amount of benefits across the whole spectrum of health. Not just one thing, but across everything. And why would a drug just do this one thing with all the side effects, and this does all this stuff? And it's because food softly modulates enzymatic processes and genetic expression, has a normalizing effect. It has a balancing effect on all kinds of elements of health. It has this broad umbrella. Not very impressive when you are suffering from a heart attack. You need a drug then. Yeah, you really do. But when you're talking about health and maintenance of health, you need that gentle modulation. Oops, that one's a little too hot. Calm down, boy. And then, oops, you're a little too low. Come back up. That's what vegetables do for you. Vegetables should be your mainstay in your diet. In Europe, we still consume meat at 1/5 our quantity. It's used there as a flavoring, not as an entree. Here at most restaurants, if you order a meal, meat's right at the center. That's your, and then just a little sprig of something on the side, just so you can feel good about it because you're eating healthy. Yeah, that's not how we're meant to eat at all. We're meant to eat mostly this. Guy from Trillium Farm, very intelligent fella. I invited him to talk this winter when he's less busy, and he will. Philosophy major from Calvin, decided that was not his thing, and went into farming instead. I went to the farm. I wanted to check this out because his produce looks absolutely unbelievable. By the way, I took this Saturday morning with my phone, so that's why the quality is like that. But he can get into all kinds of philosophical discussions on sustainability and why we do what we do. And I was, of course, listening with the half an ear. It's kind of interesting, yeah. But I wanted to go to his farm because I wanted to see one thing, his soil. I wanted to see what the soil was. So I scoop it up. It's thick, it's black, it's rich, it's loamy, it's delicious, it's beautiful. It's a flat lake bed, an old lake bed. All kinds of things have decomposed in it over these thousands of years. It is rich, loamy soil. And you know what? Those nutrients are being dumped into those plants. And those plants are dumping into you. And all those nutrients are getting into you, lighting your cells up like a Christmas tree. Compare that to the cheap carrots that you can buy coming in from Florida. Look at the dirt that's on there, if there's still any dirt on there. It's thin, it's sandy. I don't want it. There's not much nutrients there. Is it better than a Twinkie bar? Yeah, it is, but it's not nearly as rich as this. Yeah? So you're looking, if there's dirt on it, check it out. What kind of dirt is it? Is it rich? Is it thick? And we'll get into organic versus regular produce right away. But the dirt that it was grown in, the conditions it was grown under, is something I really look. And that's why I'm looking a little bit askance at the new hydroponic stuff that's coming out, where everything's grown in greenhouses, and you look at the root system, and all it is some liquid growing through, and these things shoot up like mad because it's mostly nitrogen. I'm thinking, oh, what about all those little subparticles of chromium and potassium, magnesium, the nitrites, all those things that are supposed to be in the soil? Are the plants really getting those things? So. Doesn't he look like a great typical farmer? Yeah. And one thing that I noticed that's too bad, and it's just a private musing here, is that a lot of our farms are experiencing a brain drain where the brightest are going to the cities, to our Ivy League schools, becoming engineers and accountants and who knows what, whereas the ones that were getting poorer grades often stay in the farm. Now, I'm not talking about him, but in general that's been happening, and isn't that too bad? Because true farming really takes a lot of skill, a lot of mental skill. You really got to know what you're doing. But we have not made farming a very much rewarded profession in this country. We've machinized it. We've made it just very impersonal. The farmers are no longer tied to us like they should be. And I feel there's been quite a brain drain going on as far as the farmers go. The first strawberries are out, incredibly rich in antioxidants and vitamin C. They're absolutely delicious. Yep. Potatoes from this guy, he just has them piled very high always because they're his pride. We always take the potatoes. I buy them as small as possible because the smaller ones have nutrients in them, more nutrients. And I like them scrubbed, that way I don't have to scrub them. And then I throw them in a big pan and we just get them ready that way, mash it with some real butter. No, I don't use margarine in that. And maybe a little bit of olive oil, some spices in it. We've got our potatoes for the week. Yeah, it's easy, it's cheap, and we use it as a complement. And this guy really does a good job with that. So, a quick word. I tend to jump around a bit, I hope you don't mind. But I took this picture real quick at one of our lunches. You can see the salad bowl right behind it. But there's all these salad dressings, and don't buy them. Make your own. It's so much better. And get into some funky things, like oleo extra virgin olive oil. It's a very sharp olive oil. Experiment with different olive oils. It's like wine. There's that much variety in the olive oils. Different ages, different regions, and I really urge you to get different olive oils. And then here, this one is mixed with lemons, just pure lemon squeezed in there. You can just throw that on your salad alone. Notice it's by Fustini's. They have 4 locations here in West Michigan. This one I got from Holland, Michigan. There's a big olive oil store there, Fustini's, and they have over 50 different olive oils along with balsamic vinegars. Great place. Is it cheap? No, it's not cheap. It's $14.95 for that bottle. Yeah, it's not cheap. But I can tell you, you don't use much of it, so it might actually be cheaper than a lot of other things. It actually might be. And then when you compare it to the healthy buy and all that, it ends up being very cheap. So taste-wise, great. This is an aged balsamic vinegar. It's 18 years old, and that is almost like dessert. In fact, in the Netherlands, we use that for dessert. It's used on ice cream. It's used on yogurt. It's very, very good. It's got a little bit of a sweeter taste, and it's really refined. It was a little bit more expensive, but for an 18-year-old, it wasn't that bad. It was $15.95 for that bottle. Yeah, yeah, and again, it will last you a long time. So that's what we throw on salad, just a little bit at a time. You got a little spout on it so that the kids don't use the whole bottle. It just kind of dribbles out very slowly. Yeah, got to take care of that one. Now, the trouble with 5 kids is that you finally have it somewhat figured out by the 5th one, and then it's almost too bad because you can't use it anymore. But, all right. So this was an interesting dish that doesn't look appetizing due to picture quality, but we took the stuff from the farmer's market, decided just to use it. Just use it. And Lucas, what was that white stuff called again? Parsnips. Parsnips. Keep on forgetting that one. Parsnips we hardly ever use. And I said, this time I'm going to buy it. Parsnips is never been my favorite as a kid. I always kind of, so I said, I should really practice what I preach and just get stuff that, like I always say, and try new things. So this time we just threw some parsnips in there. Beets, we quartered them up, threw them in there, and lots of onion, olive oil, and then I had my oldest son spice it because he's known as the spicing king. And I forgot the little note card that he had written out for me. Afterwards, if you're interested in that, you can certainly hit me with it, but he had curcumin in it, salt, pepper. He squeezed just a little bit of garlic on it, lots of olive oil, like I said, and we threw it in the oven for an hour and a half at about 350. It was absolutely delicious, very sweet. Kids loved it, and gasp, my 8-year-old ate it. And it was jaw-dropping experience because she is known as the fussy one, but apparently it passed the test. Now, what did we get out of this meal? Beets, extremely anti-cancerous. Upregulates something called cytochrome P450, CYP450, in the liver. This is the main detoxifying enzyme that we have, folks. Liver can be rescued by beets alone. I've seen cirrhosis of the liver being reversed. Yes, you heard it right, reversed by eating beets 3 to 5 times a week. Do not be alarmed. Your stool will turn red with this. I've had a few calls. I have red stool. Panic on weekends. First thing I ask, did you eat beets? And the beet greens. Have you ever used beet greens? Beet greens is even more nutritious. So whenever we buy beets, you look for the greens that are on top of it. Are they fresh? Are they good looking? Take them off immediately, eat them immediately because they wilt quickly, but they have twice the nutrients that beets do, and beets are already at the top of the list. They are incredible for detoxifying effect. There's something really unique in their fiber called inulin, and inulin also lowers cholesterol quickly. Oh, what I was looking for was right in my hand. And Make sure I got it all. Oh, yes, here's another one. This is a little reminder. If somebody is undergoing chemotherapy, I always have them eat beets. If they won't do it, we've got it in an extract called phytoganics, which is 8 pounds of it in a little scoop, along with some other vegetables. It's very chemoprotective, helps you against the side effects of chemotherapy, and it doesn't render chemotherapy ineffective. That's also a very important thing, because there's a lot of things out there nutritionally that will go counter to chemotherapy. This one actually helps support chemotherapy while protecting you against the effects of chemotherapy and avoids the dreaded chemo brain, which is where there's brain fog, depression, all kinds of problems. Beets is a real powerful player there. I love beets, as you can tell. And it's so easy because you bring it home, scrub it real quick, keep the peel on, take the leaves off because you're going to use that as a salad, and then you just quarter it if you want, or you leave it like that. Just throw it in a Ziploc bag, throw it in the fridge, and use it within 2 weeks. They say 3 weeks, but it really has a long shelf life. And really, I think it can go much beyond that, but I'm afraid you start losing some nutrients. Because these beets here, these are 2 weeks old. We kind of forgotten about them, found it in a drawer. Ooh, we better use these up, and that's how we use them. Yeah, it really is easy. This is the salad we had with that meal. Notice, where's the meat? And notice, I'm not wilting before you yet. I haven't had meat in, I don't know how long. You don't need meat to be healthy. Why? It's because, you see all the colors? As soon as you have 3 colors in here, you are making protein as much as your body needs. You do not need meat for protein. Meat is really expensive stuff for your health. And if you use it only as a complement to the meal. No, I'm not one of these foaming at the mouths, I'm so opposed to meat type of a guy. Don't worry about that. Just because I avoid it doesn't mean you have to, but I do want you to moderate it. Because the average American now eats meat 3 meals of the day. And that is totally out of control. Your body doesn't like it. It goes into inflammation mode. The kidneys get plugged up by it. I have several patients, more than several, that got chronic gout, chronic kidney stones. First thing I do is take the meat out. 9 times out of 10, problem solved. 9 times out of 10. It's very inflammatory. Meat changes your pH in your body, causes arthritis. We know meat is extremely pro-cancerous. 70% of cancers in this country is diet-related, we think. That's what most cancer specialists now agree on. And meat is part of that. So this is a very rich-looking salad, I think. It's got your artichoke hearts. Artichoke hearts has a specific fiber in it that really feeds good bacteria within the gut wall. It's used to treat ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease. In fact, some of the fibers to treat those conditions come from artichoke hearts, and they taste really good. Some olives, just to add a little saltiness to it. There's that frisee and different kinds of veggies, and yes, you just pour that lemon over it with olive oil, maybe a little balsamic vinegar. Yum. Awesome stuff. And you can actually feel your body just brighten up when you eat this. Compare that to chicken strips from McDonald's. Just compare it. Chicken strips, 4 little chicken strips has more fat in it than you require in 4 days. This stuff is shocking. In fact, there's a whole bunch of litigation going on right now that we have to take the word chicken out of it because it's barely recognizable as chicken. I'm serious. Let me tell you about chicken. Chicken is, compared to this stuff, we're looking for another word to replace chicken. In fact, have you ever noticed that Kentucky Fried Chicken is no longer Kentucky Fried Chicken, but it's KFC? It's because by law they can't call it chicken anymore. And why is that? When you go into these farms that grow them by the tens of thousands, and you look at these chickens, you will take a few steps back in shock. Most of them have no feathers. They cannot walk. A lot of them don't even have eyes. And they're riddled with pus oozing sores. I am not exaggerating. Those are chickens because they're dark environment. They are all crammed together because they can't walk. They're all just next to each other. Dust is flying through the air. The fumes from their poop is so acidic, it permeates into their body, which we then, when they go onto the killing floor, they have to inject special spices and colorings because their flesh is a sickly gray. So they push in a color, then they push in some flavors just to give it some substance, and then they grind the whole thing up into these chicken strips. Oh, it goes into this antiseptic bath and then an antibiotic bath too. It's mind-boggling. That is our chicken. It is no wonder that we are sick as a nation. It really is no wonder. And all the pesticides that are concentrated in the feed, I hope none of you are having chicken tonight. But this is totally different than a good Amish chicken, right? Which is squirreling around outside, soaking up vitamin D from the sunshine, picking selectively the food that it knows it needs, and not being force-fed some weird stuff that is meant to make them grow quick, that is laden with antibiotics as well as growth hormones. So I'll take my salad, please. Yeah? I'll definitely take my salad. And easy to make. Just whatever they have available, throw it in there. This was a first for me. Ate that one yesterday. Interesting stuff. It's a type of radish, French radish it's called. Trillium Farms urged me to get it. Yeah, okay, I'll try it. And we did. It almost tasted like cucumbers. It was really cool stuff. And yeah, absolutely loved it. Recommend it to anyone. You get kind of a sense of adventure. Notice there's not very many of them. It's not like I bought a bushel of them. But yeah, try it. And who knows what benefits they might have. Strawberries are just coming in season, loaded with vitamin C. They're the third most vitamin C loaded fruit out there. And what about fruits? Fruits are really good for you. Vegetables are better, but fruits really complement it. And remember, you want variety. It is really good. My mentor, Dr. Vogel, Alfred Vogel, always preached the first thing that goes in your mouth in the morning is a little bit of fruit, no matter what it is. It primes your digestive system, releases some of the toxins that have accumulated in your liver in the morning, and go ahead, have a little bit of fruit, and then maybe 15 minutes to half an hour later, start eating. Your digestive system's up and rolling, and this works especially well for people who are not used to eating breakfast. It's a meal you should never skip, by the way. Breakfast, if you skip it, will make you gain weight more than a lot of bad eating habits do. It does. Because you're allowing your furnace, your metabolism to die down, and it never quite catches on fire again the rest of the day. So, very good strawberries. But Lucas was kind enough, out of our field behind our house, to pick some wild strawberries. Aren't they cute? And they're fully ripe. And you go, what's wrong? No, really, what's wrong with those? Yeah, there's a big difference. And when you taste these are really tart, sour, and great for you. Why would that be? These little things have grown up to adapt to nature. They have had persecution out there. Yeah, bugs, maybe some drought, who knows what all, wind, all kinds of adversity. No pesticides, no fertilizers thrown on them. They've had a tough life. But that's what makes them incredibly nutrient dense compared to our cultivated ones. So the closer we can get to nature, the more nutrient laden your fruit or vegetable will be. They need some adversity to produce all the compounds in them, which works as a pesticide and as a fungicide, and it becomes rich. The more adverse the environment, the richer they become, given the opportunity that they can actually get the stuff out of the soil. Remember, we need good soil. And I wanted to cover asparagus also, since this seems to be such an all-American, especially all-Michigan, vegetable. Asparagus. It's got a history dating back to Europe, about 1,500 years. And it's been cultivated ever since. And that's the European history. There's an Egyptian history too, though, when I started looking at it just a little bit. And this one's really cool because some of the Egyptian pharaohs would send an entire army out towards where they, along the Mediterranean, where the asparagus grew, and they would ship it back by the boatload. So asparagus has always been kind of a royal kind of vegetable, and works so well on the grill. When I buy asparagus, I usually put it on one of those little plate dealies that has little holes in it. I throw it on there. I make sure they're washed. And then I throw a little sea salt on it. They're wet. And then the sea salt just kind of glazes around it so it melts into the asparagus. And then I'll throw olive oil across it, and I'll grill it for just a few minutes. A little bit of a smoky flavor, and it's absolutely delicious and cheap. Works well. Make sure that you keep it crisp. It's a good one. This one has inulin in it also. Inulin is one of the main fibers for our bacteria that feed our bacteria in our gut. Asparagus is also very anti-cancerous, very anti-cancerous. And 4 out of 10 people, when they consume asparagus, have this really funny smell to the urine. It's a genetic defect. I'm sorry. There's something missing in your body. It's an enzyme that kicks the sulfur into half. It's missing, and you're just going to be stuck with that smell the rest of your life. It doesn't mean you're detoxifying. It doesn't mean something bad is coming out or happening. It's just the way you're built. It does not, as far as we know, have any other ramifications except that you're going to tear up more with onion than the rest of the crowd. And if you have too much garlic and onion, it will upset your stomach because you're not able to break it down quite as effectively. So if you're one of those 4 out of 10. It's aspartic acid, by the way, that gets broken up. So it has a relatively short shelf life, so make sure you don't keep it out more ever than 6 days. It should be eaten quite fresh. And one of my cousins in the Netherlands just starting to grow it. This is totally new to the Netherlands, even though this is where it kind of came from originally. And it's his field has become quite the tourist draw, I just heard. So I think that was kind of amusing. So I took this picture on Saturday morning, all organic. And these are the original guys. When I first started going to the farmers market, they were the one and only organic farmers out there. These are the old hippies. They were doing it way back in the 60s, gave organic farming probably a bad name because everything was about peace and marijuana and organic farming, and the granola crowd loved it, but no one else did. So now it's finally caught on. I get a real kick out of these farmers because they really know what they're doing. You ask them any questions and they know it inside and out. They might look a little gray and withered, but their organic produce is great. They don't produce it nice. They just kind of throw it on the table, as you could tell. Just, whop, here it is. And go ahead and buy it, but you're getting some very good produce from these guys. Now, what about organic? You know, last time I was so on Saturday when I was at the farmer's market, only about half of what I bought was organic because I couldn't quite do everything organic. So I buy organic when I can, but it's not organic. That's okay too. Don't get too hung up on organic, but try to go organic when you can, because the last study was done by a wonderful journal called Alternative Therapies. This is a peer-reviewed Medline publication. In other words, it's been reviewed by all of the smart guys and gals, and they've approved this magazine for yeah, you can believe what's in there type of thing. I looked at PubMed, which is a great resource if you ever want to do some studies into some of these journals, and they found that in the past 34 studies, on average what they agree on is that at worst, the nutrient content goes up 20%, and at best, it's about 5-fold. So somewhere between a 20 and 500% increase in nutrients is what you'll find in organic produce. But there's a bit of a problem with this study, because I noticed that they only studied a few key elements. What about all the trace elements, molybdenum, gold, zinc, copper, manganese, chromium, all those little elements that we need teensy little quantities for, but have incredibly powerful effects in our bodies? They drive big enzymatic pathways that gives us energy, that makes us contract muscles, that make us think, that activates our white blood cells for our immune system. All those things that we have no clue about what they do. Because really, when it comes to nutrition, we're about at 1650 where surgery was. Seriously. And the nutritional field is expanding they double the rate of knowledge that we have in nutrition doubles every 17 months. That's how quick we are expanding on it. We have no way of measuring all those little elements, but we do know, we have some very interesting studies with isotopes, that if you eat organic versus the same stuff inorganic, both quite healthy, right? That your cells, metabolic pathways, energy producers, lights up so much stronger than it does with eating inorganic things. But look at it this way also. Inorganic is sometimes much more available, and it's going to be a whole lot better than corn syrup, isn't it? Yeah? So we have some choices. You have to use common sense. So when I'm in the grocery store, because the farmer's market's not yet open, and I see something organic that's pretty local and looks very fresh, I'll buy it. To me, it's worth that extra money. But if I see organic and it's shipped from Chile, and it's a little bit wilty and kind of so-so looking, I'd much rather buy the more pesticide-laden produce, which is fresh. I know I'm going to get better benefit out of it. But you do, if you can, want to minimize your pesticide use. You really do. A new study came out last week on ADD and ADHD, and it found that kids suffering from ADD and ADHD had on average 60% higher amounts of pesticides in their body than the kids that don't. We know that there's a definite link between ADD and ADHD and pesticides, and who knows what else. And what if you're one of those really sensitive souls that just seems to react to everything? You don't have the liver and kidney function that some others do. You're going to be even more sensitive to it. This is just a large generalized study that didn't really look at the peaks and valleys on how some kids did this and that. Yeah? So getting rid of the pesticides as much as you can, but don't be fanatic about it. And we have published a list on Facebook of which ones are most important to which ones least important as far as buying organic. Yeah? So find it over there. You'll also on Facebook find the whole thing on bug spray. I hopefully can convince Dr. Stacy to write for us. So organic also is totally different. You're investing in your health here. And that little bit of extra cost up front can give you huge dividends out the back end, just economically. Because poor health is so expensive when you look at it as far as time lost in work, decreased productivity, and really the cost to you and perhaps the taxpayer and the whole medical system by going to some foods that you shouldn't be eating. Organic is also a lot less costly to the environment. If I look at my one cousin, his name also is Adrian Boer. It seems to be a popular name in my family. Adrian has a really unique farm, and he took it over from two of my uncles. And I look at how he as a Dutch farmer is farming, and man, it is so unique. You don't see the single crop, high efficiency, gleaming machines kind of farm here. But the yield per acre is scary. It is absolutely scary because Adrian has, first of all, he has sheep. He has a lot of sheep. And where do they graze? The true Dutch way, where it's free, on the dikes. Government property, he asks for permission. He says, can I have my sheep graze on the dikes? I will maintain the grass on the dikes that way. And you look at the dikes all around his place, and they're all covered by sheep. Great. So there's a cheap source of food for them, and very healthy. They're outside by the sea air because the sea, North Sea, is right next to it. And they're incredibly healthy sheep. It's kind of fun. As a kid, I would go with him on the motorcycle, just follow the dikes, just to see if there's any sheep lying on their side or on their back, because if they're on their back, they'll die. You have to go up there and put them upright again, because otherwise they can't breathe, and you'd think they'd be smart and figure that out, but somehow they don't. But Adrian also grows grass, and he considers himself a grass farmer. Why? because it fuels his farm. And he will look at the grass, and he's taught me to look at the grass really closely to see which stage it's at, because he will rotate his cows on the grass from field to field to field, about every 3 to 4 days, depending on condition. Because if you overgraze, what happens is the grass will die, productivity goes down, and he has to start feeding his cows. He's trying to save money here. So he keeps it rotating, and the grass grows denser and denser and denser, because what he does 3 days after the cows have left, he puts the chickens on there. He's also a chicken farmer. And the chickens love growing on these fields, because they'll go to the cow pies, tear it apart, and it's funny to watch them do this, and they'll take out the maggots that the flies, because the flies feed on this, and they produce maggots, and at day 3 about is when they're at their maximum juiciness, apparently. And these chickens will just eat them left and right and get plump and produce gobs of eggs. Rich eggs, lots of good oils in them, yeah? And not only that, but he gets rid of all the diseases and all the flies that spread disease, because most cow farms have lots of flies with it. Not his farm, yeah? They're not there, and he's got lots of eggs to sell. On top of that, when you take out these larvae, they're spreading these cow pies all apart, beautiful fertilizer for the grass. Next time that the cows make a rotation on there, fantastic grass again. Does that make sense? So one thing is just balancing another. This is how he's getting the most yield. He also puts his cows in the barn in the winter, and he's got this grate that he puts them on, and the grate goes up higher and higher as the poop accumulates underneath it. And why is that a smart thing? Because this stuff is like compost. It produces heat. He even puts wood chips on it every once in a while, and that creates more fermentation. So he never has to heat his barns, which increases the output of the milk, because some of the energy from the cows has to go towards heating his barn. Now it doesn't. It can all go towards milk production. So his milk production goes up by about 20% when he does this. Yeah? At the end of the season, when he puts the cows back out again, he's got a bunch of pigs. And the pigs will rotate. He lets them into all this muck, and they're just swimming up to here in the muck. It's quite a sight. You've never seen a happier pig, by the way. But why would he do that? Well, one, he's getting all the wood chips all mucked up together. And not only that, they're picking out all the little larvae and parasites and who knows what grows in this stuff. And it disinfects the poop, the cow poop. Now, because it's been all rotated around and it's disinfected, he gathers it up and throws it on his field for further fertilization. Happy cows, happy pigs, happy chickens, and very happy field. Does that make sense? Everything just kind of goes together. There's hardly any waste. You don't have all that stuff that I found that happens in where you feed the cows, one of those big stockyards, where I had the privilege of working for 3 months once. But my vote is, with this kind of a farm, where there's minimal waste, minimal pollution, you're supporting a whole ecosystem, trying to mimic nature, and get an incredible yield per acre. And you get this, it's kind of nice to be able to talk to the farmer a bit, you know, that person-to-person contact. When I was in graduate school, I was running fast out of money. One of my student loans wasn't being approved, and I had a family, small family, 2 boys at that point, and my wife and I to support, and I had to take a summer off and do just something crazy to get money together so I could continue on with my graduate studies. That was here in the States. And one of the choices was to build silos, extremely dangerous work because you're walking around at great heights. But that was a very good income for 3 months. And the other one was to work in a stockyard on one of those big ranches in Alberta. So I figured I had some farming experience because my whole family, they're into farming. So I'd go there, and this was a very unique experience because, yes, we actually used some horses to round up cattle for branding. So I felt like a real cowboy. A little bit like a fool, actually, because in the Netherlands I was taught to learn to ride English, you know, the very proper way. And here they threw this Western saddle on this thing, and I felt like a sack of potatoes on there. But learned pretty quick. But most of my work really involved the stockyard that was designed for these. And wow, what did I learn there? The stench, unbelievable. The mountains of poop, we're talking stories high. every morning I would have to get up early, get the front loader on a tractor going, go into the silage, bring out that big scoop, and then I would quickly grab 2 bags of antibiotics, throw it in there, and then another bag of who knows what medicine, I really don't know to this day what that was, dump it into this truck, and just do that for about half the morning while the truck just lined this up in the troughs. And the main ingredient? Corn. That is the main ingredient. Now, we pride ourselves for steaks being corn-fed, right? But corn is not the natural food for cows. It is very bad for them. We force corn on them because it fattens them quickly, because they can't, well, that's a whole other story, but it puts them in such an inflammatory state that the meat actually gets marbled, which we look at as a good thing in this nation. Marbled meat is nothing more than an inflammatory response that causes fat stripes to go into the meat, making it more tender, yes, but all those evil compounds are stored in there. The inflammatory compounds are transferred to you. It's called xenohormesis. You will, to some degree, start resembling the cow when you start eating this. So xenohormesis. This is not good news. And then all that stuff that's in there, we fatten up a cow in 16 months for slaughter. The old-fashioned way, grass, 5 years. There's a huge difference. But grass-fed cows have good oils in them. They're a lot less inflammatory. No, they don't have those stripes in it. Yes, they're more expensive, but we certainly didn't hurt the environment by raping the soil out in Iowa to grow the corn to destroy that cow. See how that is all connected? Because ultimately, eating that cow is really part of the reason that we have to do such high oil production and have all this trouble in the Middle East and in the Gulf and who knows what else. It's all connected. And that's why this whole food chain is now called the industrial military complex, because it is. It's all kind of connected together. They feed each other. But back to this cow, what we have found, and I've always wondered about this, because ever since I've worked there, that certain smell, whenever you go to a non-grass-fed, non-organic cow meat, I can smell the stockyards. I can literally smell it. It's got the same smell. So of course that's a natural turnoff. It's not difficult for me to avoid that. But why would that be? It's because these cows, they have nothing else to do. They're kind of stumped. They lay in all that poop. They lay there all day long, and it's kind of liquefied. It permeates into their whole beings. And we have proven that. And this stuff is really toxic, folks. There's a lot of pesticides in there. There's a lot of antibiotics in there and all kinds of residue that if it ever flows into the stream next door, the EPA is all over them. But yet here we are soaking it up in our meat and we're eating it. This is why I don't eat that meat. It's really simple. Put it on a grill and it's like, oh, what is that? That gives me memories from the stockyards, all the dust and all it was not good. Yeah? So what a difference that farming experience was compared to what Adrian Den Boer is doing to this day in the Netherlands. It's an incredible difference. It's a heavy machination. It's almost like a factory. It's non-personal. Nobody knows everything. When the cow gets shipped, who knows where it goes and where it goes into, versus your local farmer who produces all this good stuff. This is why I go to the farmer's market. I don't have time to do it myself, but I'm sure thankful for the folks there, all the benefits they give for health, and wow, what a difference that can make. So, can you use the farmer's market for everything? No. The supermarkets are absolutely beautiful, but even in a supermarket, if you stick to the periphery of the shop, of the store rather, that's where the good stuff is found. And the more you go into the inner caves of the grocery store, the more evil it becomes. Because you know why? The list of ingredients grows. And if the list of ingredients is more than 4 or 5 things, it's junk. I try not to eat food that's made in plants. But rather, I like to eat plants that's been grown on soil. Does that make sense? The real thing. And that's what the majority of your diet should be. And you'd be amazed by all the medicinal effects of these foods. I just picked a few of them, but you can go on and on. And food is a drug. You change the way you look, the way you feel, the way you think, the way you live, and your functional life is tremendously expanded just by this. And it doesn't take a whole lot of skill to put it together. You lightly steam it, you saute it, you always keep it crunchy. And my oldest son decided to draw me this whole schematic on how you should do a vegetable. And he really makes it a science. He said, what he's saying, and I'm going to read now because these are his notes, I hope you don't mind that. Start with fresh veggies. He's vegetarian. You can never go wrong with oil, sea salt, and some crushed pepper. Okay? Fresh pepper, make sure it's ground up. Sea salt is so much more delicious than regular salt. And those ingredients are your acid component. In the summer, when herbs are present, just take any herb, any of them. We're growing 49 of them right now in our garden. So just pick this or that. You can't go wrong. And just add 1 or 2 of them to your vegetable, along with the base of your oil, sea salt, and crushed pepper. If you want to cut bitterness, if it happens to be a slightly bitter, like Brussels sprouts, add a little bit of garlic. That cuts bitterness. Yeah? So anything a little bit bitter, like kale, add some garlic. Along with garlic, some other things that cut bitterness: ginger, lemons, and green peppercorns. Okay. Instead of the herbs, let's say the herbs run out, you can also use warm spices. It's best not to mix these together, by the way. You either do the garlic and the salt, or you do just the herbs, or you do just the spices. Don't mix them too much together because you'll ruin a good dish. And you can just throw it in, be a guy. Just like, yeah, just do it that way. Chili powder, paprika, cumin, coriander, turmeric, sometimes cinnamon, nutmeg, those types of things. Yeah? And just taste as you go along, just like a real chef. That's pretty good, a little more type of thing. That's how you do it. You can do this with plain old broccoli. You know how delicious broccoli is with just a little bit of butter and garlic simmered over it? It is absolutely phenomenal. My wife loves making just butter or ghee, squeezes some garlic into it, and then she'll put some sea salt in it, and then after we're done steaming our broccoli lightly, she'll pour it over top of that. It's absolutely delicious. It's absolutely delicious, and it's so simple and so health-giving. So make sure it's not mushy. Yeah. I always judge in a restaurant, by the way, by how they make their broccoli. Because if they serve it all mushy, yeah, chef is kind of so-so. You become a food snob after a while. It's fun though. Yeah? So, he's got something here, and I don't know what it means, but I'll read it anyway. Sour cuts oil and tames salt. When bitter, go garlic. So I covered that already. And don't add too many things. We covered that. So just take one thing at a time and taste it. So garlic cuts the bitterness. Use herbs when they're in season, 1, 2, or 3. Or use the warm spices, and that's the chili powder, paprika, cumin, turmeric, cinnamon, nutmeg, all those types of things. Yeah? When you have greens, so we're talking salads and other just leafy types of things, saute them really quickly. A little bit of oil, but we're talking just 30 to 60 seconds. Very, you just wilt them slightly. Add nuts, raisins, apple. Those are the types of things that we do. Yeah? And I love using our Chinese wok for that one. Our Chinese wok is one of those big things, and we just throw it in there, and then right away we have our apples and the raisins, and sometimes slivers of almonds. We throw that in there, and the kids absolutely love that. Yeah. The onion goes in there really well too. Usually makes it nice and sweet. Onion does when you cook it. Ginger and mushrooms is really good in there too. So we use that for chard, spinach, beet greens, kale, all those types of things. Okay. Oh, and this is a little add-on, but when steaming, do not get rid of the water. It's loaded with nutrients. Use it for something. I don't care what. I sometimes drink it. Yeah. But it's precious stuff. It's got all kinds of minerals in it. Tastes good. Use it for something. Gravy, and you can do a lot with it. Be an artist. Use your imagination. Food is medicine. It changes the way you feel. Go for it. It is fun. It is not work. Just one quick practical note. We run busy practice, busy family, don't have much time. Our meals in general take 15 to 20 minutes to prepare. We eat very well. What we do is we take the food from the farmer's market or grocery store, plunk it on our countertops, and put our whole family to work, whoever happens to be up. Yeah? Wash it real quick. We slice it. We peel it. It's all ready to go. It's all in. We seal it in glass containers or plastic bag or whatever. We throw it in the fridge, and it's all there. That is our week. And we go through the week. Yeah, this bag looks good. That bag looks good. Boom, boom, boom. Bop, 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 bop. We put it in the pans. There's no washing. There's no peeling. It's all cut up. And it literally takes us about an hour to do with 3 or 4 of us. Just cutting it up, slicing. We have fun. We talk. And, that one looks good. No, that one doesn't look good. And it's all that silly language that goes along, silly conversation that occurs in the family. It teaches the kids appreciation of food. We know where it came from. We know what job Trillium was doing for me on that one. And that we know that those Florida carrots, boy, we're not going to get those again. They sure were flavorless. And so we just have conversation back and forth. It really makes us connected to the food. And when we do eat it, it's really family time. And we spend hours eating it. That's where we spend our time, not preparing it. It's great time. We have weird political discussions, philosophical discussions. We discuss the food. And it's always a great time. And it's the one European habit that I refuse to give up, because I feel that's definitely part of happiness. It's part of health. It's part of good digestion. And it's really, they're always studying the French, right? Why are they skinny? Why are they healthy? Why do they outlive us? They outsmoke, they outdrink us, and they eat all this bad food and all this whipping cream and this and that. They have a good time with it. And they eat real food. And their plates are a lot smaller than ours. They really are. So it's not difficult. It really isn't. And if you stick to real food, mostly plants, eat a little less, you're really doing our philosophy. You're doing a philosophy of health. And sometimes I also don't want to become too analytical food, by the way. Some people really make food a problem and a stressor. You don't want that either. Yeah, it's there to be enjoyed. It's a blessing, and utilize it. And yeah, enjoy. The season is upon us. Any questions?